people understand that there's an answer, there's a way. We the people have to say. So send the orders to prepare that we the people do declare.
Torture is a war crime. Prosecute. When will we do that? We already know that war crimes have been committed by our presidential leaders. Other things go unpunished in our country. There's a major article in the current issue of Rolling Stone. This is the issue. Young Bob Dylan. Rolling Stone. The article. The $9 billion witness. Meet the woman. J.P. Morgan Chase paid one of the largest fines in American history to keep from talking. Mark Taibbi is back writing for Rolling Stone. He's well organized regarding the economics of our country. This is the illustration that goes along with it. The man on the left is Damon, chairman of J.P. Morgan Chase at the time, and that's our Attorney General. Get some idea about the story here. Let's see if I can move that. Okay, here. I could lose everything, says the Chase whistleblower, but if we don't speak up, then this will all be going to get. This is all that we're going to get. The biggest financial cover-up in history. Here's a lady who has the courage to speak up, risking it all. Elaine Fleischman. This is the story. She was an attorney working with the J.P. Morgan Chase, monitoring the loans. She discovered that there was something wrong going on. She reported it, finally decided she'd have to go public. The ordinary citizen who is the target of a government investigation cannot pick up the phone, call the prosecutor, and have the case dropped. But Damon did just that. Here's his photograph. Can you imagine somebody powerful enough to get an investigation regarding his workings just dismissed like that? Here's the man who did it, and he's resigned his position. He did some good things, but let's look at this record. Let's zero in on some of the subjects. We'll take them. The offense. HSBC Bank, J.P. Morgan Chase, again J.P. Morgan Chase, BNP Paribas, and Citigroup. What is the offense? Let's look at each one. Allowed terror-supporting states and international drug dealers to launder billions. The next one, the mass mortgage deception that Elaine Fleischman describes. That was for the settlement for HSBC was $1.92 billion, and what was actually paid was $1.61 billion. With the 2013 J.P. Morgan Chase, and we're going to talk about a little bit about Elaine's thing, $13 billion, actually paid $6.55 billion. The second time J.C. Morgan was fined, it was because they failed to report concerns about client Bernie Madoff to the U.S. authorities, They fined 2.6 billion and actually paid 2.4. BNP allowed rogue terror states like Sudan and Iran to launder money. The fine was 8.9 billion, and that's what was paid. Citigroup basically did the same thing, the same deception as Chase did, fined 7 billion, paid 4.3 billion. The Bank of America, same kind of mortgage deception, only worse than both Citi and Chase, 16.65 billion and 8.3 billion paid. Now, before we go on, just review quickly what this deception was. It had to do with mortgages. There was a boom in mortgage lending. The banks sent people out to find families, individuals, who they knew were poor and knew that they could not pay the mortgages, but they were given mortgages. Fraud, deception on all of us. They gave the mortgages. They knew they were bad mortgages, but they were bundled into a great many mortgages, great deal of money in each bundle, worth each bundle, and they were sold as AAA, the finest, the most safest, the best investments. They never told the people they sold it to that they were false, they were fraud. These bad bundles of mortgages, or bundles of bad mortgages, were sold to investment banks, people who invest in such activities. They were purchased by pension funds. They were purchased by other kinds of retirement funds. When it was discovered that these were bad mortgages, that caused the big bubble burst, as it's called, of 2008 and 9, where millions of people lost their homes, lost their savings, lost their pensions. The billions of dollars paid is nothing compared with what the actual loss was. But let's go on with this little article now. So now we have the announced, actually paid. Now, the 1.61 billion paid in this particular case amounted to 26 days of 2013 pre-tax profits. That's what it amounted to. For J.P. Morgan Chase, it amounted to 104 days of pre-tax 2013 profits. The next one, 38 days of profits. The next one, 290 days of pre-tax profits. Citigroup, 81 days. 81 days for Bank of America. Now, let's look one more. Let's look at one more line here. The details, the lurid details. What did HSBC do? What was that situation? Mexican cartels designed special cash boxes to fit into HSBC teller windows laundering the money. With Chase, months after the settlement, CEO Jamie Dimon received a 74% raise. He was already earning multi-millions of dollars annually. In the second one, the settlement structured so Chase would avoid more severe automatic penalties. And here with BNP, the international bank memos talked of financial dynamism in Sudan, despite crises of the Darfur genocide, the cover-up. The next, the deal covered misdeeds committed while Treasury Secretary Jack Lew oversaw Citi's mortgage unit. And this one, for Bank of America, legal costs imposed on countrywide Bank of America whistleblower, more than any BOA executive forced to pay. Now, it amounts to criminals not being arrested and tried. No individual at the head of any of these organizations has been punished, even indicted. When we speak of gangsters, when we used to speak of the mob, the Cosa Nostra, whatever it was, some of those people at least were punished eventually. But the system now lets these people off scot-free, and they are hailed and benefit by increases in their income. What about you? What about me? What about the rest of us in the 99%? Are we really thinking about things? Are we really aware? And basically, how many of us don't care? The recent midterm election. We have information that 2/3 of us did not vote. 2/3 did not vote. When we are at a sacred principle of a democracy. It's so sacred. It's important. What has been happening to the rest of us? Are we so jaded? Are we so disgusted with what's not being done in Congress? What is it that causes us not to participate in a republic, in a democratic principle? What if, the way we're going, we end up with an oligarchy? And Bernie Sanders, Vermont, independent in Congress, made a statement after the midterm election that very day, we are dangerously close to becoming an oligarchy. And what does that mean? That means that the billionaires, the wealthy corporations, the individuals of great wealth are allowed by a decision made by our Supreme Court that unlimited amounts of money can be spent buying elections with all sorts of campaign advertising or whatever it is. And no one is held accountable. They don't even have to acknowledge, report who contributes. It's anonymous. Our Supreme Court made that decision, knowing full well that the corporations are given the life of an individual. They never die. They're perpetual. They're considered to be people, a person. How can a corporation possibly be a person? But it's our Supreme Court. That's the way it was interpreted, a decision that was made back in the late 1800s. How can it be that Citizens United, bringing a lawsuit that was selected by the Supreme Court, that gives the right to spend unlimited amounts of money? That's bad enough. But something else is going on. The third part of this thing, called voting rights. Remember, by the way, before we go into this third little bit of information, supposedly, and there's a cartoon we'll show eventually, supposedly, men and women died for us to have the rights of a democracy. Millions of men and women, just in one war, World War II. But all along the way, millions have died for us, and we are grateful. We buy and steal elections. We prevent people from voting. And we ourselves don't vote. Maybe it's not important. Well, anyway, what's this other thing that's been going on? It's called voter suppression. It's going on. There's some details to it. Voter suppression. There's been a campaign, and it will, unless it's corrected in some way, it's going to determine the outcome of the next presidential election in 2016. Voter registrations have disappeared. In Georgia, for example, 80,000 voter registrations were submitted. 40,000 of them have disappeared, no record. So we say, in Georgia at least, in that state, 40,000 people lost their right to vote. There's a cross-check system. 27 states have signed into it. Washington State did initially, but dropped out. So there are 27 states throughout the country that compare voting lists. Now, it's a very, very, very clever system. They only use the first name and the last name to make comparisons. So, if there's a person named, let's say, Michael Jones, and Jones is a common name, and they say Michael Jones, but all the Michael H. Jones and people with other middle initials, middle names, the ones with Junior or Michael Jones III or whatever, doesn't matter. They're only matching the first name and the last name. So naturally, all around the country, there are going to be people who now are prevented from voting. We may remember when in Florida, Secretary in Florida, Catherine Harris, I think her name was, put the letter F on the names of people who had Afro-American sounding names and Hispanic names and Asian names. That meant they were a felon. There were tens of thousands of people who were innocent, no criminal record, but could not vote. That was a Republican administration. Well, in this situation, a man named Greg Palast, an investigative reporter, now a fellow with the Puffin Foundation, made a survey. He wrote a book, Billionaires and Ballot Bandits, How to Steal an Election in 9 Easy Lessons. Well, what about that? 9 easy lessons. I'm trying to find, well, we want to go on to here just for a moment. Well, I was going to read the states, but they include Alabama and Arizona and Arkansas and Colorado and Georgia and Idaho and Illinois and on through a good part of the country. 27 states, cross-checking. There's no count, no tabulation yet on how many people lost their right to vote by the shenanigans. Now, it so happens that the department, our Bureau of that measure, pardon me. Well, the Census Bureau keeps records and has tabulated the number of people that have common names: Asians, Hispanics, and Afro-Americans. The percentage it runs as high as 90% of some names. The name Washington, for example, about 90% of people of color with that name are Afro-Americans. And the percentages go on for each category. Is that something we should be paying attention about, for whatever? Are we thinking? But basically, do we care? Now, is it a coincidence, or is it something else? When one political party with governors that are of one political party, in those states, those particular states, the Board of Elections is also of one political party. So what is going on? Does one political party have to control the and people? Have to suppress the vote? They can't win without doing that? They can't win without putting billions and billions of dollars, $4 billion total has been reported on the midterm elections just passed. Secrecy, uncontrolled amounts of money, cheating, lying. Is that the method of operation that's going on, and we don't care? We don't ask for investigations? Think about it. We are recognized as the cornerstone of freedom and liberty. The world looks upon us that way. We are the most powerful in terms of the military. We are the most powerful still in the way of economics. Is there something rotten in the apple barrel? And who will reach in to pluck it out? Whatever needs to be. It would be a shame and be a good history lesson in the future. The greatest power in the world collapsed from within. And the title will be The United States of America Was. It's not an original term. We picked it up somewhere along the way. But enough of that. Well, we talked about this whistleblower, a brave woman. We had some idea of the amount of money involved in some of the organizations, cheating the rest of us, and only giving up 27 days, 87 days, 100 and some odd days of profits, and no punishment. What's been going on the island of Maui, in the state of Hawaii? Well, something very interesting. There's been a fight going on. Millions of dollars put in to suppress a vote or to change the vote or to confuse people so they do not vote on the labeling of HMOs, modified organisms.
It's GMOs.
Oh, what did I say?
HMOs.
Oh, well,
GMOs.
thanks for correcting me. Get caught up with the alphabet sometimes. It isn't funny, but anyway. Well, Monsanto Chemical is one of the companies that grows genetically modified seeds on the island of Maui. And the people of Hawaii County, which is what Maui is, it's a county, have voted to temporarily ban the growing of genetically modified food for seeds until there is conclusive scientific proof that GMOs are dangerous to human health. There have been studies that indicate that GMOs are dangerous to laboratory rats. There have been something in the order of 22 studies in one of the quotes and some of the reporting on GMOs. The ban is temporary. Any farmer knowingly growing these pays a $50,000 per day fine. $50,000 per day. Monsanto is trying to get intends, according to a report, intends to get the court in Maui to turn that vote aside, indicating that it's a defective vote or default. But we'll see how it goes. California, San Francisco and Oakland, California have labeling laws. Vermont, New York, no. Lots of states, no. But it's something that we need to address at some point. But at least Maui has taken a stand. That's not going to sit well. You know, there was a situation where farmers had genetically modified seeds blown onto their land, and the courts held that they were illegally growing and have to pay a fine to Monsanto. This goes back several years. Is there something that we should do? There's a big issue coming up. As a matter of fact, there's a meeting going on in Beijing, predecessor to another meeting going on that will be going on regarding the Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP. This partnership has some features to it that maybe we should know about. First of all, there's something called fast track. The idea brought back from the Nixon administration that Congress can give the president authorization to make a decision regarding a treaty, a trade treaty. And Congress would have 90 days to vote. Can't be any amendments to it. Cannot be any serious discussions. Just rubber stamp what the president decides. Now, do we want to give up our authority through the Senate to discuss treaties? To discuss what the provisions of the treaties are? Well, if this treaty passes, and there are 29, 20, 30 chapters, not about trade, but about controls. It would, passage would enable the big pharma to keep its patents in perpetuity. They would never run out. So big pharmacies will control the price of medications. There'll be no possibility of a patent running out and allowing generic patent medicine, which is much less expensive. It would allow the big banks to continue what some big banks have been doing. No control, no regulations regarding big banks. And we've already had the experience with the mortgages, and we've had experience in prior years. And by the way, there may possibly be a danger of another burst bubble, as it's called, and it will be student loans. Trillions of dollars. How can young people possibly pay off these large debts? They're encouraged to get an education. There are civilized countries who give free education, including free college degrees. But the wealthiest nation in the world can't, apparently. It would give internet freedom. to the companies to charge for the getting on the internet. The president just came out recently. Free and open internet. Big companies don't like that. They want to have the internet more on the pattern of the cable companies, TV companies. You get a basic price to get on the internet. If you want a little bit more freedom, you pay more. You want it faster, you pay more. The internet is the basic of civilization as we have it now and as it probably will be in the future. So we want no restrictions, but the companies do. And this fast track, this TPP, will give the permission to cut the internet up. It will affect offshore jobs. It will mean that there'll be no protection for the people of any country. Jobs can come and go as they are now, wherever the labor is least expensive. It turns out that about 600 corporate executives worked on this now for a number of years. We've reported in the past that even congressmen, not every congressman, senators or representatives, can look at the entire treaty to discuss it. Is that secrecy? It will prohibit Buy America, Buy Local. Our government now has a regulation since the Franklin Roosevelt years. If there's a contract that can be filled by American companies at the bid price or whatever the situation is, then American tax dollars must buy those products from American companies. Some communities, states buy local. No longer possible with this treaty, especially with the fast track provisions. Also makes it possible for any corporation, to sue the U.S. government or the state or whoever. Let's say it's the government, to sue the United States in court. There's no court, by the way, it's a tribunal, which is quite different. The tribunal can sanction the United States. And, incredibly, the U.S. will be sanctioned in perpetuity unless things are changed, fined, and who pays the fine? Well, as long as there are American taxpayers around, they'll pay the fine. So any corporation can do that. What are we allowing to happen if we don't stop the fast track? And if you think it's wrong, then contact immediately members of the House of Representatives, because they're going to have a big say. Let your representatives know, senators, but your representatives especially, no fast track. It's always our decision as a nation what we do, as long as we pay attention to what's happening. Well, we've talked about voter suppression, we've talked about GMOs, we've talked about this fast track situation, and we've talked about the suppression of votes, and it's really old Jim Crow coming back. Jim Crow is never quite dead.
Alive and well.
You're right. It's alive and well. So, some of the other issues that are coming up. We lost a great friend in Congress. Mark Udall got defeated in Colorado. He and his family have been important in years past. Environmental issues, land preservation, things that make our country stronger and better. This change in Congress will enable the climate deniers to hold important jobs and committees, especially in the Senate, but also in the House of Representatives. Climate deniers don't want any restrictions. They don't want any restrictions on coal or any other fossil fuel. They want EPA, FDA, people who have had their money cut. They're regulatory people, keeping us safe and healthy. It's too much money. There'll be anticipated assaults on what are called services. Cut Social Security, cut Medicaid, cut funds for education, funds for nutrition, and there are millions of people in this country, children especially, who if they don't get one good nutritious meal a day in school, don't get any. The parents are too poor, just not enough money around to take care of them. So nutrition will go, education will be cut. Any public services will be cut. Already with the decision that Congress made to have the Postal Service pay 75 years in advance for the pension benefits of people who were not born, probably not even thought about, not even a twinkle in anyone's eye. Pay for them now. Postal Service actually, without that restriction, does pay for itself and does make money. Pays for itself, pays for improvements and so forth. But we allow it to happen. The GOP wants to cut taxes for the wealthy, to cut taxes for the successful larger corporations. We understand that. Now it's out in public. That definitely wants to be. There are several trillions of dollars set aside in offshore accounts by some of these large corporations, PepsiCo and some others. They put their money there because they don't want to pay the 35% tax bracket. They want to pay only 5%. Grudgingly, but only 5%. So there's going to be a lobby, it's already planned, to lobby Congress to, for 1 year, permit them to bring their trillions of dollars back into the country, their profits, for 5% tax. So they're tax dodgers in a way. What's going to happen? Marijuana has been is being passed. Medical marijuana is gaining a foothold in the country, and Ben & Jerry's is also fighting. Jerry Greenfeld was interviewed on Democracy Now! In Oregon, the company, both in Vermont and in Oregon, the company's in favor of labeling GMOs, genetically modified organisms. And they've renamed an ice cream in Oregon. The new name is Food Fight Fudge Brownies. Food Fight Fudge Brownies. GMOs labeling was defeated in Oregon, but the company is interested in that particular thing. I've got so many other things to talk about. Let's go on to talk about some of the issues, the activities that are in the area. Here's one coming up at the independent media in Troy. I got my little pointer here. Here it is. November 16th. Myra Melford, Ben Goldberg, duel, 7 p.m., $15, the 16th. This is coming up near the end of the month. Reserve a space. It's very, very important. Down with the Rent event on Friday and Saturday, November 21 and 22 at 8 p.m. $20, $5 for children in Voorheesville. Another one by Old Songs is coming up here. It's coming up at the end of this week. Well, actually, it's coming up tomorrow. Here we go. Brother Son. Brother Son. National touring artist. And this is an unusual event. Drones are in the picture, especially in our area. Grounding the drones. The Women Against War initiative. There was on Veterans Day in Troy, the Arts Center, an event. It's going to be again on the campus theater at College of St. Rose on the 13th at 7 p.m. And the 15th is going to be in Old Chatham at the Quaker Meeting House on County Road 13. There's a phone number to call for the one in Chatham. Here's the phone number for the one at the College of St. Rose. The Academy of Holy Names in Albany on the 19th at 7:30. There's the phone number for that. Women Against War have been very, very active. They marched with the Veterans for Peace in a parade in Albany regarding the during the parade down Central Avenue. I want to call attention to this situation. It's in this issue of Yes Magazine. It's the issue on poverty. And this is what the cover looks like. Yes Magazine, The End of Poverty, and a story about when farm workers put down roots. They become independent. They fill the need for food. Incubator farms help seasonal workers start their own businesses where they get better pay and the support of the community. There's a program. It's headquartered in, it's the ALBA, Agriculture. Here, let me get this over here. Here we go. ALBA, the Agricultural Land-Based Training Association in Salinas, California. It's a program of a growing number of incubator farms across the United States dedicated to training the next generation of farmers. According to the National Incubator Farm Training Initiative at Tufts University, there are currently 111 new or planned incubator projects in 38 states. More than half of the 5,700 aspiring farmers they serve are refugees and immigrants who will help fill an important gap. Great, isn't it? Helping people. And by the way, the immigration thing is really on the new Congress's list of things to change. Immigrants in our country were once a staple, bringing new people, new ideas into our country, responsible for making us a great country, economically and socially, serving in all kinds of capacities in the military and civilian life. But now it's a bad name. It's a bad word. Immigrants. Well, we may find out probably that I was going to make a joke out of it, but it's no joke. We are all immigrants. Every single one of us. And by the way, we're all related according to DNA studies. We're all related. We all go back to a female, a woman who once lived in the Great Rift Valley of Africa. So we are all brothers and sisters. But that idea is not shared by everybody. Science doesn't always matter. Sometimes politics matter worse or more. There was an important event held recently, memorial service for Ed Block. Ed Block was a man who was a hero, decorated veteran officer in the Pacific during World War II, worked on labor issues, civil rights issues, justice issues, a man respected and honored. The people who turned out for the memorial service at the First Lutheran Church, this was the date, were literally from all walks of life. And the service included all the things that Ed stood for. There were prayers by Muslims and Hindus and Buddhists and Christian and Hebrew, all with the same respect and love. A most impressive ceremony. This is an issue that we ought to be aware of. I set Doonesbury aside here for a few moments. Close the SOA, the School of the Americas. That was its old name. It's still functioning at Fort Benning, Georgia. A phone number to call. We, you and I, support a government that trains people from other parts of the world, initially the Americas, South and Central, in how to control their populations. The latest in weaponry, in strategy, in laws to control the population, still going on. And every year, every November, a contingent of people from all over the country and now from other parts of the world who appear at the gates of Fort Benning to protest and to claim that we should not be in that business. Our business should be helping people, not governments, to control people. Well, we've got to think about that. Now, a couple of comments here quickly on this recent election. This is a comment on the voting situation. These are from the Times-Union in Albany. We'll just take a look at a few of these quickly. I fought and died defending our democracy for this? Who cares about the midterm elections? I didn't vote. Here's one. Fever, vomiting, yes, doctor. Diarrhea, stomach pain, perspiration, fatigue, yes, doctor. Have you recently traveled to West Africa? No, but I've been watching a lot of midterm election stuff. And the comment that explains everything. Here's another one that explains some things. You first. Here's a good one. Now we can work together. We'll see about that. And here's the last one of the cartoons. Supreme Court, House, White House, add to the cart the Senate, and that's where we are. So, what shall we do? Whatever it is that we do, let's find out the truth. Let's participate. Let's work together. Support the food banks, the independent bookstores, the independent businesses, hardware stores and all. Support the food pantries. Plant a garden for the spring, for yourself and for others. Give your surplus to other people who are needy. The food bank can use it and distribute it, and the food pantry certainly can too. I've been your host, Lou Ismay. Thank Glenn Jarrett for his engineering. In the meantime, until the next time, pay attention. Pay attention.
That there's an answer, there's a way. We the people have to say. So send